So this week I was writing on biocentrism, which I'm all enamored of biocentrism. It's written by a guy named Robert Lanza. He's a physicist and biologist. He's considered one of the top 50 world thinkers. But this always happens to me. I get to writing one talk and then something else seems more important to talk about. And I tend to sometimes write 2 or 3 talks in a week. Sometimes I start a whole new talk on Friday, which is what I did here. But what inspired me was being so keenly aware that one of our very precious spiritual teachers is in hospice and about to make her transition, and that is Joanna Macy. Do you all know Joanna Macy? Have you heard of her? I bet, Jean, I bet you've worked with her probably many times. What a gift she's been to this world. And I had her book, Active Hope, and I especially really love that book, but she's got many great books. And she's in the process of making her transition. So I thought, we would honor her here, and I would share a lot of her teachings. And wonderfully, they can tie into the ethnocentric subject, so I'm going to weave them both together a little bit, but give you that other talk another time more fully. So one of the stories that Joanna, she's a Buddhist teacher, and one of the stories she loves to tell is the story of the prophecy of the Shambala Warrior. You may have heard it. And this story was told to her by Chogyal Rinpoche. And so I would like to share this story with you. And it tells about the rising of regular people who wish to bring about great change and healing through the powers of compassion and insight. And interestingly, it's said to come about in 24, 25, but you know how these ancient prophecies are. They're sometimes off a few hundred years. And and of course, prophecies are not written in stone also. I think sometimes they're warnings so that we can use our own innate power of creation to change the course of history, right? So Joanna speaks of the times we're in as a time of great change, and she likes to talk about it as the Great Turning. She says the Great Turning, it's like the third revolution, and it's basically late stage capitalism, and it's late stage industrial revolution, right? And there needs to be this shift. And she said the shift is happening much, much, much faster than previous revolutions. And it needs to happen. So let me tell you the story of the Shambala Warrior. And I'm going to tell it as Joanna describes it. She tells it so beautifully. If you have a chance, listen to her online, tell it, because it just really, it's so powerful. So she tells it as it was told to her by Chogyal Rinpoche. And keep in mind, this was a vision seen 1,200 years ago. You have to keep that in mind. And some of the language sounds like 1,200 years ago. So there comes a time when all life on earth is in danger. Barbarian powers have arisen. Although they waste their wealth in preparations to annihilate each other, they have much in common. Weapons of unfathomable devastation and technologies that lay waste the world. It is now, when the future of all beings hangs by the frailest of threads, that the kingdom of Shambhala emerges. You cannot go there, for it is not a place. It exists in the hearts and minds of the Shambhala warriors. But you cannot recognize a Shambhala warrior by sight, for there is no uniform or insignia. There are no banners, and there are no barricades from which to threaten the enemy, for the Shambhala warriors have no land of their own. Always they move on the terrain of the barbarians themselves. Now comes the time when great courage is required of the Shambhala warriors, moral and physical courage, for they must go into the very heart of the barbarian power and dismantle the weapons. To remove these weapons, in every sense of the word, they must go into the corridors of power where the decisions are made. Now, the Shambala Warriors know they can do this because the weapons are manomaya, man-made, mind-made, manomaya, mind-made. And this is very important to remember. These weapons are made by the human mind so they can be unmade by the human mind. The Shambala Warriors know that the dangers that threaten life on earth do not come from evil deities or extraterrestrial powers. They arise from our own choices and relationships. So now the Shambala Warriors must go into training. So at this point, Joanna's very excited, and she asked Rinpoche, how do they train? How do they train? We want to know. I want to know. And Rinpoche answered, they train in the use of two weapons. And he used that word, weapons. The weapons are compassion and insight. Both are necessary. We need this first one, and he lifts up his right hand, because it provides us the fuel. It moves us out to act on behalf of other beings. But by itself, it can burn us out. So we need the second as well, which is insight into the dependent co-arising of all things. The dependent co-arising of all things. It lets us see that the battle is not between good people and bad people, for the line between good and evil runs through every human heart. We realize that we are interconnected as in a web, and that each act of pure motivation affects the entire web, bringing consequences we cannot measure or even see. But insight alone can seem too cool to keep us going. So we need as well the heat of compassion, our openness to the world's pain. Both weapons or tools are necessary to the Shambala warrior. And that's where it ended. So, you know, Joanna tells this story, and she says we must not be afraid of the suffering of this world. Pema Chodron is so good at talking about that too, that we must not fear it. We must not fear it, but we must be strong and courageous enough to be present with it. But as I was saying, it can feel overwhelming sometimes. All you have to do is, you know, turn the news on or scroll Facebook, and there's floods, and there's, you know, masked men disappearing people, and there's just all sorts of scary things. There's war, and there's children starving and drowning, right? So it can feel overwhelming, and that's why we need the insight. Insight is wisdom. They're the same. They're synonymous in the Buddhist terminology. And that's where I love to tie in Thich Nhat Hanh's teachings of, you know, yes, there is suffering, but suffering's not enough. You know, life is filled with suffering, but it's filled with wonder. It's filled with beauty. It's filled with the blue sky and the gentle breeze on our face and the beautiful smile of a friend, right? So we have to fill up our cup. And wisdom is in learning how to balance, isn't it? Aren't you learning that? Are you learning that? I'm learning that. I'm still working on it. You know, being present with the suffering, but also present with the wonders and the beauties of life. My partner Chuck and I, it was his birthday Thursday, and we went to Lake of the Woods. And I haven't had a day like that in way too long. And we went, just the whole drive up there was so peaceful. There was no traffic. And I love it when you get into the big, tall firs, you know, and like the whole ecosystem changes. And then we got there, and it wasn't very crowded, and we went to a quiet little place on the lake, and I had a raft, and I blew it up, and I got out there, and I floated on that lake. And the lake was so gentle. I mean, it was just, everything was conspiring to bring me peace and just completely restore my nervous system. And the raft was doing this, and I just felt like, oh, this is the best massage you could ever get, you know. I just felt like it's all leaving me. Every bit of tension is leaving me. And then we laid we had this big wide straw mat, and we were just looking up at the trees, and there were 2 ospreys that landed. I think they were doing their thing, Twitter pating or whatever it is they do, but they were making a lot of noise. And it just filled me with joy and wonder, right? And then we fell asleep, and just the earth, I just felt like the warmth of the earth, and just our bodies on that thin little mat, and just to feel the earth. It just was so restorative. And I was thinking how much he needed a day like that, and I needed a day like that, and we all need a day like that. So I hope you give it to yourself often. We have such beauty around here, such beautiful nature. So we can be present, right, for both the suffering here and the wonder, right? The wonder fills us with energy, so we have courage, so we have strength, right? So I want to explore a little more of the 2 weapons the Shambala Warriors were given. Compassion, which is also, we term it loving kindness often, and insight, which we term wisdom. The Shambala Warriors, they're regular people, but they're people with compassion that care deeply about the world, that love humanity greatly, and the earth itself. Regular people like us, right? Growing into bodhisattvas, growing into earth angels. So the story says that these Shambhala warriors know they can dismantle the weapons of destruction in the world because they are manomaya, or made by the human mind. And that's really important to remember, because they can be unmade by the human mind. And so the story's pointing to the incredible power of compassion and wisdom to recreate the world. And that's what we need to remember. We can't forget. We can't just be lost in the suffering and forget. Compassion and wisdom can recreate the world. That's the teaching here. And so this is where I can weave in my other talk on biocentrism, because biocentrism is relevant. I get so excited these days with quantum physics and what they're discovering. And that's why I love Robert Lanza, because he is saying that everything is created by consciousness. It's not the other way around. And it's so neat to see what they say in physics is the same thing the Buddha said and the rishis and the yogis of old said thousands of years ago. They say it a little differently, though. But to me, quantum physics gives me and gives us these pieces of the puzzle that really help us, I think, create more powerfully. So the Buddha says, all that we are arises with our thoughts. With our thoughts, we make the world, okay? That's the Buddha. That's what, 4,000 years ago. Present-day quantum physics says, a little differently, but the same thing. They say, our minds collapse probability waves to generate a physical reality. Our mind collapses probability waves to generate a physical reality. I'm going to quiz you later. Have you heard of quantum foam? Okay, quantum foam is this amazing, amazing term for, I'm not a physicist, so this is very basic. Chuck was telling me, if you can explain it to a 6-year-old, then you've got it. So I'm trying to put it in terms I can understand and so you can understand. But the quantum foam refers to the basic stuff of the universe, the stuff that exists before you even get to basic particles like electrons, okay? So it's the stuff. And this quantum foam is not matter nor energy, but just the potential of becoming either. So it's basically a cloud of probabilities. You got this cloud of probabilities just going everywhere you go. So, there's all these possibilities hanging in the air for your life, right? And you can choose this one or you can choose that one. And our consciousness chooses one, and then a wave function collapse brings it into being. Think about the many times in your life you've chosen something. You've had these multiple choices and you've chosen something, these possibilities hanging in the air. I think about when my brother and I we went to Lake Tahoe to camp out, and we decided to move there from Florida. These big moments in your life, right? There was this cloud of probabilities and you chose one. You chose a big one that changed your life, right? I think of my mom and dad meeting at University of Maryland. I'm so glad they met, right? They chose that out of the quantum foam, and they got together and created me and Stephen and Travis, and we're so glad. But, it's simpler to say that all you think is creating reality, but I think visualizing it being created in the unseen quantum world helps us, it gives us understanding and helps us have insight into the Manomaya. So back to Joanna, she shares how she came back from seeing the Rinpoche, and she received this prophecy, and she went and saw Jack Kornfield, and Jack said, so how does it end, right? How does that story end? It seems like it's not quite finished, right? And she says, I don't know. I don't want to know, because we're creating it right now by how we live, right? Yeah. So Joanna often says that though things feel unstable right now, how we choose to invest our energy and our heart and our mind can have much more effect on the larger picture than we're accustomed to thinking. Just read Jean Houston's books. Yeah, she spent her whole life talking about that. It's an exciting time to be alive, although somewhat weary emotionally, would you say? Wearing emotionally at times. So in Joanna's book on active hope, she asks her audience a question, and I want to ask you that question. And I just want you to answer from your heart, just from your honest truth. So I want you to give me a one-word answer, or a very short phrase of what comes to mind when you contemplate this sentence. When I consider the condition of the world, I think things are getting weirder, better, evolved. What's that? Transforming. Chaos. More obvious. Get out of the way. Things are getting more get out of the way. Illuminating. Spiraling up. What was that? Perfect. Things are getting more perfect. Harmonious. Exciting. Clear. What's that? Now, Joanna reminds, I should have said this, she reminds you, try not to be too positive. Like, we want to tell the truth. So every moment, things are perfect. Disappointing. Let's questionable. Scary. Thank you for telling the truth. For you, your truth. Wonderful. Okay. What else? Mystifying. Oh, yes. Approaching radical change. Yeah. Revolutionary. Challenging. Upsetting. Complex. Destructive. Enlivening. Curious. Challenging. Chaotic. Bringing evolution back to the mind and heart and spirit. Yes. Upsetting. Grief felt. Yeah. Disruptive. Dramatic. Traumatic. Untrustworthy. Shocking. Disturbing. Tragic. What's that? Sad. Dangerous. Shitty. We're going to have to edit that out. All right, we'll conclude there. You know what Thich Nhat Hanh says? He says, we need compost to grow. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being honest and sharing what's true for you. Yes. If it's a phrase or a word, yeah, because this is a long talk. Can you share it after? Okay. So there are two kinds of hope. There are two kinds of hope that Joanna talks about, and I think this is so important right now and so key. Because sometimes I think there's a kind of being hopeful that can feel Pollyannic. Does anybody, you know? And it often leads to just feeling like the problem's just too big and we're already defeated, that kind of being hopeful. But there's a second kind of hope that she talks about so much, and that is a desire for what could be. And this is where we're participants, and we're not wishful thinkers. And in other words, it's active hope. I love that. So Joanna says active hope is about becoming active participants in bringing about what we hope for. It's a practice like Tai Chi or like gardening. So in other words, it's something that we do rather than have. I love that, something we do rather than have. And it involves 3 steps. The first step, take a clear view of reality. And that's what we're doing here. We're just calling everything that as we see it. Take a clear view of reality. And then number 2, identify where we would like things to go and what values we'd like to see expressed more. Where we'd like things to go, what values we'd like to see expressed more. And then the third one is take steps to move ourselves and our situation in that direction. So name some values that you would like to see expressed more. Love, compassion, empathy, humanity, oneness, celebration, yes, caring, surrender, earthfulness, laughter, yes, deep listening, resilience, good ones, peaceful, diversity, celebration of diversity. And I would add justice and fairness and empathy and tolerance and inclusiveness and truth. So now, what are steps we can take to move ourselves and our situation in that direction? Give me one word or a phrase. Self-referral. Okay. Presence. Involvement. Creative dreaming. Oh, I was saving people from a flood in my dreams last night. I was busy being the bodhisattva in my dreams. That's great. What else? Intelligent action. I'm sorry? Facing our fears, yes. Compassionate action. Prayer, thank you. Meditation. Singing and dancing and listening to piano and coming together like we are right now. What else? Silence, yes. What's that? Having a wonderful, vital dog as your companion. Olivia. Jean's beautiful dog, Olivia. Thank you. That's really, really excellent. So, yeah, and writing poems, and writing music, and writing articles, and writing letters, and making calls, and growing food together, gardening together, having meals together, planting trees together. Yeah, learning to live more sustainably, personally and collectively. So we each have unique gifts. We each have something that we can give to contribute to the world. I love when people use their voice for good. I was with Alma, I don't know, I was touring, maybe it was 10 years ago, and Jim Carrey came to see her, and I was sitting right up front, you know, and it was just so precious. I mean, he clearly just put his ego aside, and he just got up there, and she held him, and she rubbed his back, and he started crying, and she wiped his tears, and she just held him for the longest time, and it was just so incredibly tender. I have a picture of them. Somebody, my photographer friend, took it and gave it to me. But I learned later that Jim Carrey has quite a life story, and it's one that really demonstrates active hope and courage and perseverance. At 15, he performed his very first comedy routine on stage in a suit his mom made him, and he bombed. He totally bombed. But he was undeterred. And so the next year, at 16, he quit school. And he just to focus on comedy full time. And, you know, he was funny and he knew it, even if nobody else did, right? At least yet, right? So then he moved to LA, and there's a story how he would park on Mulholland Drive. I've never even been there. Is that near Hollywood? It must be near Hollywood. And he would just sit there at night and visualize his success. And one of those nights, he wrote himself a check for $10 million. And he wrote in the memo line, "For acting services rendered," which he dated Thanksgiving 1995. Well, right before Thanksgiving 1995, he had his payday with the movie Dumb and Dumber, and later he put that deteriorated old check that he had carried around forever, everywhere he went, in his father's casket when he died, because all through all that he went through, his father never stopped believing in him. So Carrie never gave up, you know, and he has this innate spirituality that fed his hope. And I found this great quote from him that takes it a step further in his evolution. He said, "I think everybody should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that it's not the answer." And here's another great quote. "Behind every man is a woman rolling her eyes." I love his honesty and humor. You know, his two key teachers are Alma and Byron Katie. They're women, great women for sure. So active hope is a hope that we take and we put it into action. We combine it with our highest values and our own efforts to use our specific gifts in the way we can, just to bring that one small change, because there's so many of us. All those little small changes really add up and become this powerful thing. Robert Lanza, in his theory of biocentrism, he talks about something called consensus reality. I love this term, because he's talking about how we're creating together. Because sometimes I go, hey, you know, I'm creating peace. You know, what's the problem here? But there's a consensus reality. We're all in this together, right? And so I'm gonna describe that a lot more in my next talk, because it's pretty extensive. But it is how we're co-creating as a collection of beings with consciousness. I decided to do a little writing exercise for you, though, to close my talk. And it's something Joanna suggests, and it's a letter that I wrote from my future self to us all. And I wrote this from my future self of 50 years from now, right? I don't think I'm going to make 115, so this is my future self beyond this life. And it's a message of profound joy to inspire hope, because we are creating this each moment. Creation is only happening now. It's only happening now. So we are the creators of this reality, and we can change the consensus reality. So this is one simple exercise, one way we can do that. Write a letter from your future self. So here's my future self to us all. Hello, my beloved precious ones. I'm sending you so much love and support as untold legions of spiritual masters and ancestors and angelic beings and realms of gods and goddesses are. Be ever so kind to yourself, dear ones, and fear not, fear not. There is indeed what you term a great turning happening upon your planet. It is like the pain of a caterpillar who has many new capacities formed for a new life, yet still feels crushed by an oppressive outer shell it must break out of. And the outer shell of limitation is humanity's need to overcome the us versus them mentality and truly operate as one organic system, all cells of one great body that includes the living organism of Earth. You shall indeed overcome. The last vestiges of the hungry ghosts of greed and lust for power will indeed dissolve into a new paradigm of humanity choosing compassionate wisdom and living in harmony as one web of life. all future generations celebrate the incredible courage those of you showing up now are demonstrating. You are our heroes, of which we sing and celebrate, for indeed you brought a third revolution, a golden age unto this earth. You are the Shambala Warriors that were spoken of over 1,000 years ago. You are the Bodhisattvas who, through your dedication to love, to raising your consciousness, and to acting in heroic ways, were finally able to tip the scale and transform the collective consensus reality. You have every reason to feel immense hope. Every reason. And we are with you. We are with you. So call on us. We are the future. And the future is so very bright. And you, with the power of your beautiful hearts and powerful minds, brought it into being. Thank you. Thank you. We love you so very much. Don't worry. All is well and will be well. Love, your future self. So we can go into the future, right? We are not bound by time. Time is just a thought, right? It's thought created. It's more of that manomaya. So we can go into the future. We can know it works out. We can send that energy back. We can move around in time. And we can see the world transformed by awakened consciousness. Put that out into the quantum field. Put it out there. So I am creating this. We are creating this with vision, with words, and with actions. So may it be so, and so it is. Thank you all. Love you all. Thank you. Thank you.